First, let's review some documentation and history. In summer 2013, IFAB released its changes to the laws of the game. There weren't many, but one of the changes included a small change in the language of Law 11, specifically pertaining to gaining an advantage by being in that position. This is what it said before. Gaining an advantage by being in that position means playing a ball that rebounds to him off a goalpost or the crossbar having been in an offside position, or playing a ball that rebounds to him off an opponent having been in an offside position. This is what it said after the change. Gaining an advantage by being in that position means playing a ball that 1. Rebounds or is deflected to him off the goalpost, crossbar, or an opponent having been in an offside position, and 2. That rebounds, is deflected, or is played to him from a deliberate save by an opponent having been in an offside position. A player in an offside position receiving the ball from an opponent who deliberately plays the ball except from a deliberate save is not considered to have gained an advantage. That the seemingly innocuous change in language actually did have a significant shift in the application of the law. Anybody who's been following professional soccer in the past 12 months may have noticed referees at the professional level making some rare offside decisions that, well, didn't seem to be in line with the way we've always applied Law 11 to those specific situations. And that's because at the game's highest level, they sat down and reevaluated what this new language actually meant and realized that IFAB had changed the law rather dramatically. And that's what this podcast is all about today, explaining how the law now works under this new language. And it means you should start applying it this way immediately. Let's start by looking at a clip. A lot of folks in Minnesota may be familiar with this clip, though people outside Minnesota may not be. This was from the North American Soccer League semifinal match between Minnesota United and Fort Lauderdale. The referee was Fotis Bazakos.
Brito. Anderson. Gets it back. It's through. Nunez! No goal. Offside is Fort Lauderdale.
There were 3 guys offside, Chris. What's Fort Lauderdale doing? There were 3 players offside.
And the Fort Lauderdale bench has erupted as well. Referee over to have a chat with his AR. And it's a goal! Martin Nunez has equalized it here in extra time. You see the battle. Here's Anderson with it.
3 guys are in offside position when the ball's played. Who's it go to?
It's going to go to Nunez right in the middle.
He's offside. Chris, not even close. We saw it. What?
It looks like it went off the deflection.
Doesn't make any difference. It does not make any difference. The deflection does not make a difference, Chris. It's when it leaves his foot. Watch again. It leaves the player's foot. Right there. Offside. Offside. Can't make any other call. The lines, I don't know why the lineman changed his mind.
The decision here is about as critical as you can get. Fort Lauderdale scores the tying goal in added time, forcing the game into extra time. Eventually, Fort Lauderdale wins this game and kicks from the mark, eliminating Minnesota at home after United had posted the best record in the league during the season. In other words, this is a gutsy decision to make in front of what would absolutely be a hostile crowd. The Fort Lauderdale player who scores the goal is in offside position when the ball is played by his teammate. Nobody disputes that. When the ball squirms through to him, the assistant referee raises the flag to indicate offside, but no whistle sounds. The Fort Lauderdale player scores. Initially, it looks like the goal will be waved off due to the flag, and the Fort Lauderdale players immediately confront the assistant. Fotis comes over and shoos them away and has a short conversation with the assistant, then awards the goal. The key moment in this play comes when the initial pass is mishit and dribbles to United defender Kevin Venegas. Venegas is caught off guard, but he makes a deliberate attempt to play the ball. Remember the new language. You can argue that the ball doesn't go where Venegas wants it to go. You can argue Venegas was under pressure from attackers, including perhaps even the offside attacker. But under the new language of Law 11, none of that matters. The only thing that matters here is that Venegas made a deliberate play on the ball and that play was not a save of a shot. The law allows for goalkeepers to save shots, and it allows for defenders to save shots, for example, if they're standing on the goal line. And in such cases, should the ball deflect to an attacker who was offside at the time of the shot, the attacker would be gaining an advantage from that position. However, if the attacker's play on the ball was not a shot, the gaining an advantage clause cannot apply. Therefore, this is a pass that is played deliberately by a defender, and that play nullifies all three clauses of Law 11. The offside attacker is not interfering with play by playing the ball. He is not interfering with an opponent by keeping that opponent from playing the ball or impairing his view of an incoming shot. And, as we have just established, he is not gaining an advantage from that position under the new specific instructions established by the language change. This is not offside. Fotis correctly overrules the AR's offside flag and awards this game-tying goal. Now wait just a cotton-picking minute, you're probably thinking. I've been watching or playing or coaching or refereeing soccer for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. That is not how offside is applied. The manner in which the law is interpreted is different from what we have become accustomed to. And that is why this podcast is so important. If you're a referee and you're saying that this goal needs to be taken away, then you are applying the law incorrectly. Let's just start by saying that there's been a lot of discussion in higher circles about offside in the past few months. CONCACAF, U.S. Soccer, and Pro have been busy discussing the law to try to get on the same page moving forward, and this month's pod is going to discuss where that is heading. Having spent so much time emphasizing the clarification to Law 11 in the December podcast, now here in March we're going to discuss the evolution of that thinking and what to expect moving forward. Having noted that in December the concept of what defines a deflection versus a defender misplay had changed, 3 months later there are further nuances to consider. Please understand that the clips, the explanations, and the concepts discussed in December were completely accurate for the current thinking in December. 3 months later, after some open discussion, we need to discuss some specific nuances of the deflection misplay argument that will make the topic a bit more gray again. We also need to look at some very specific concepts of interfering with an opponent, as certain types of specific situations have been called out as being defined more clearly, making them less gray and, in fact, more black and white. Let's start with the deflection misplay discussion again, seeing as that was the focus of the December podcast. In December, we noted that Pro was instructing its referees that if a defender made any sort of deliberate play on the ball, the offside decision was reset and an attacker in offside position could not be punished because the ball was last played by an opponent. After much discussion this winter, this has been further clarified. Instead of thinking about this as a deflection or misplay, we want you to now think about it as either an action or a reaction. The referee crew must take into account the decision-making ability of the defender for the given situation when determining when a play is considered a misplay rather than a deflection. This is not a major transformation from what we saw last fall, but it does provide slightly more leniency for the defender in certain situations. Essentially, if the defender has adequate time and distance to act on the ball, the quality of the play on the ball does not matter. The offside situation is reset by the action. However, if the defender does not have adequate time and distance and thus is reacting, this is now considered a deflection and the offside decision is not reset from the teammate's original touch. Let's look at 3 examples, 2 of which we are revisiting from the December pod.
McGee takes it short. Alex. Now McGee's ball in. Glanced off the head of Osorio. The flag is up. It won't count. Toronto FC clearly pushing up.
Fave does not want Cummings to turn, and he does. And it's Burns who's getting in. It's a struggle here. Montreal hasn't reacted. Burns to make it run, and he does. Montreal will pass.
I see here Omar Cummings. He got the ball from David Horst and Giles Burns. He takes the chance. He doesn't give up. He waits.
Pregunta que si vamos a televisar Chivas contra Tijuana, claro que sí, a través de Univisión Deportes en Unimás. No se separen. Tony Shani va mirando, parecía que apuntaba, le entrega a Francis, el servicio, el remate. ¡Gol! Sobre la hora, una jugada perdida. Ha renacido la aspiración del club cuando apenas allí pone el punterazo. Mamita querida, habilitado o no. Estaba Bernardo Llor, Cristo Stoichkov.
No es fuera de juego porque el defensor toca balón en momento justo de.
In the first example, a Toronto defender in black leaps to block a cross, heading the ball, but is unable to keep it from progressing towards goal. A Chicago attacker on the far post in red, who was in offside position when the ball was played, lunges after the touch by the defender and pokes the ball into the goal. Pro noted that this goal should have been allowed. The Toronto defender made a choice. He acted to try to play the ball, and he made a touch on the ball. He had time to choose to play the ball and act on it. The quality of the touch does not matter. This is an action. Therefore, the offside decision is reset, and the defender's touch means that the, quote, last touch by a teammate requirement for enforcement of Law 11 is eliminated. The second example was used in the December podcast. This situation was correctly not called offside in the match, and this decision remains correct under the new guidelines. The Montreal defender in blue has plenty of time to act with intent and play this ball. That his touch is terrible is inconsequential. This is a controlled action by the defender. The offside Houston attacker in orange can no longer be punished because the ball was no longer, quote, last touched by a teammate. The flag correctly stays down, and Houston scores a goal that is correctly awarded. The last clip is also from the December podcast, and here we see this new reaction time consideration come into play. Philadelphia's Maurice Edu does not have time to react to this ball and make a controlled play on it. Therefore, the consensus was that this is a reaction. Yes, we do see Edu move his foot towards the ball, but it comes at him so fast that he does not have time to act in a controlled manner. The ball is deflected to an attacker who is in offside position when the ball was played by his teammate. This now being classified as a deflection or reaction, it is now considered offside, and this goal, while awarded correctly in 2014 under the established guidelines that Pro had created for the 2014 MLS season, would not be awarded under the adjustment made for the coming year. Please keep in mind that the decision of whether the defender had time to act and make a deliberate play on the ball is in the opinion of the officiating crew. This will vary from situation to situation. Importantly, you have to consider the skill level of the players involved as well. The clip involving Maurice Edu is going to be offside at any level, but if the ball is moving slower and Edu has an opportunity to make a controlled play and action, he would lose the benefit of the doubt. However, if this was a U11 game, even a slower ball could still result in this being offside, just because the processing ability and skill level of the players is so much significantly lower. Ultimately, that decision lies with the referee crew, and this means that the decision in less clear situations will be open for variation in interpretation and disagreement. The second point of emphasis on Law 11 that came out of the winter training is that when the goalkeeper is influenced by the actions of the attacker, the area from which a goalkeeper can be influenced is significantly larger, and the actions of the offside attacker that can be considered to have influenced the goalkeeper can be interpreted far more liberally. Let's look at a few examples.
Martins, he's got the pace. Comes to Papa. All very tight. Still Seattle. Nagel, has he found Martins? Surely there's a chance. Flag goes up, goes down. The goal will stand. Just the start to the second half that Seattle were craving. It's a beleaguered Dan Kennedy and a beating over Femi Martins.
Well, Chivas USA had plenty of numbers around the ball and Martins. 3-4 guys. The first question was Nagel interfering with Dan Kennedy? As a goalkeeper, I always kind of question these situations, and it was a deflection.
Harry Shipp on the ball for Chicago. Offside flag went up on the Fire. Never mind the ball in the back of the net. They are calling this a goal. The flag went up near side.
Total chaos. Players all stopped. Thought it was offside. They're arguing right now. Tim Cahill. Mike McGee never touched the ball, so the issue is, Steve, did he interfere? Was he an active or passive participant?
In this first clip, Seattle's Obafemi Martins chips the ball towards the far post. The ball slides past Seattle's Lamar Nagel, who's in an offside position when the ball is played. Nagel makes a motion like he has a thought to try to play the ball, but then thinks better and pulls back. Chivas goalkeeper Dan Kennedy pauses for just a split second. He is influenced by Nagel's actions, and this pause costs him any chance to prevent the goal when Nagel allows the ball to pass without touching it. While in beginner classes we instruct students that an offside attacker may elect to visually show he's unwilling to become involved in play, in this case, Nagel clearly influences the actions of the goalkeeper. Consensus from the pro preseason camps was that this is offside, and Nagel should have been called for an infraction. The goal should not have been allowed. In the second clip, Chicago's Mike McGee moves towards a cross, but then pulls away from the ball. McGee's movement causes New York goalkeeper Luis Robles to freeze as he comes out to challenge the cross. Take McGee out of this picture, and Robles will not pause and lose the opportunity to try to deflect this cross. McGee's actions influence Robles' decision. He has interfered with the goalkeeper's decision. Again, consensus is that this is offside and the goal should not be allowed. The key to understanding this point of emphasis is that a goalkeeper's movements and decisions are easily influenced by players that can be 10 yards away or sometimes even more. The goalkeeper must decide whether to come out for a cross or attempt to block a shot by diving, and committing his or her body to that motion can be influenced by an offside attacker who might even just be standing there, not even moving. If the attacker is capable of influencing the goalkeeper's decisions simply by being in an offside position, then the attacker should be punished for offside for interfering with an opponent. The third and final point of emphasis from the winter meetings looked at the concept of interfering with an opponent, specifically the goalkeeper via distraction or impeding his or her view of an incoming shot or cross. Consider this final clip.
It's all number 9. Gilberto fires and scores! My goodness, he backed it up with that!
Wow. You've got to be kidding me.
In this clip, an attacker deliberately positions himself behind the wall and is in clear offside position. The attacker's position here is for one reason and one reason only: to disrupt the goalkeeper's decision-making ability. There are 0 exceptions to this situation. This is offside 100% of the time. Even if the shot goes nowhere near the attacker, the tactic being employed is deliberate, and if the attacker is in offside position, he is doing so with the clear intent to interfere with an opponent. The referee is permitted to be proactive here, and he or she can warn the offside attacker before the kick that the position will be interpreted as being involved in active play. Pre-game discussions amongst the crew should make it clear to both assistant referees that this situation should be flagged 100% of the time. If the attacker persists with the behavior and remains in offside position, the call should be made regardless of whether the ball comes close to his or her position. To review, understand that the clarification in Law 11 by Pro in 2014 has been slightly further modified, allowing for a bit more situational interpretation. While this moves the decision away from the black and white line of defining a defender's play on the ball as a misplay versus a deflection, keep in mind that a sequence in which the defender has time to process the situation and play the ball with a deliberate action will reset the offside decision with a touch. Many plays that were once viewed as deflections no longer can be interpreted that way. Referees and assistant referees must also reprogram the manner in which they evaluate an offside attacker's influence on the goalkeeper. While the push in recent years has been to move towards keeping the flag down and allowing more scoring chances, this clarification is against that trend and recognizes the challenges that goalkeepers face. The mere presence of an offside attacker can drastically influence a goalkeeper's decision, and therefore referees and assistants are expected to punish such infractions as interfering with an opponent. Finally, the referees and assistants also need to recognize that attackers who position themselves in a manner to interfere with the goalkeeper's view of an incoming shot or cross should be punished for doing so if, in doing so, they take up an offside position. These actions are clearly designed to interfere with an opponent, and if it's done from an offside position, it is a clear violation of Law 11. In each of these points of emphasis, it is absolutely essential that there is a thorough understanding of these potential situations between the referee and his or her assistants. All three officials must be on the same page. With the action-reaction interpretation and interfering with the goalkeeper situations being open to so much subjective evaluation, the entire crew must be able to recognize the potential for defender touches and find a means to communicate effectively so a quick and cohesive decision can be made without any signs of confusion or dissent between the members of the officiating crew. Discussion of these clarifications and how they will apply in your game, no matter what the age and skill level, has to be part of your pregame